What up, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I'm EmersonLotzia, rolling solo with you here for the next 55 minutes or so, and happy NFL Franchise Tag Day to all those who celebrate. What else do we have coming up? Where the NHL should take its Stadium Series next. Plus, why John Rahm is clearly on a mission from God. Closing in on history set by Tiger Woods, who didn't look terrible, but didn't look great over the weekend. But let's get started with our NBA panel. Let's go. DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne, DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya over there on the right. We're breaking down the latest news and headlines around the association because we're still technically on the All-Star break. Games resume on Thursday night. All right, Gare Bear. Hard-hitting question here. One thing you could change about All-Star weekend, what would it be? Be honest with me. Open up.
Okay. I'll just say off the top, I don't think there's any real way to fix this stuff.
Yeah.
I think all-star games in general are kind of just broken. They were invented basically for fans in the 60s and 70s and 80s to be able to see players that were outside of their market. We don't have that problem anymore. Again, it's a great honor for the players. It's something nice to tack onto your resume for Hall of Fame stuff, but I don't know. I'm just not overly concerned about fixing the All-Star game. That being said, the best idea I've probably heard in the last 48 hours to maybe ramp up the competitiveness is why don't we turn the All-Star game on Sunday into something that resembles the rookie-sophomore games a little bit more on Friday, which seemed like they were much more competitive. Now, maybe that's because those are younger guys. Maybe it's because you had some G League guys out there trying to make a name for themselves. But let's break up into 4 teams. It means more drafting. Let's play smaller games to quicker Elam endings because it seems like the guys only really want to play defense when we're close to that Elam ending anyway. So instead of playing to 215, let's just play a couple games to 50. I think maybe a tournament style could be the way to go because I had more fun probably watching the Rookie Sophomore Challenge than I did watching the actual NBA All-Star game.
For sure. Chinmay, what do you think here? Because this does feel like the only All-Star game out of the 4 major sports that players actually want to be at. Problem is, you've got injuries piling up now.
Yeah, I think before the game itself, that week leading up to it, the status of 7 players, including the 2 captains for the game, were in doubt. There was questions about who would actually suit up for this game. I agree a little bit with Gary, and I think shorter games, what if they did a 3-on-3 for the games, King of the Hill style, where, first team to 5 wins the All-Star game. What if they did knockout? What if you had, 24 players playing knockout? That would be something cool. But I really think, honestly, the NBA just needs to get out of its own way here. The league has tried to create drama around this game with the All-Star drafts, and then they tried to do a live draft, which turned into an entire production. If you really want to create drama, go make it a playground-style draft 15 minutes before, ultimate reactions. If anyone feels some type of way, they're going to feel it immediately in the moment. It became an entire production. The reserves got picked first because, people were worried about, someone being picked last. If you're trying to create drama, actually create drama.
Yes.
Don't go out there and make it an entire production. Give them 45 minutes to cool off and then go make it, as Bob Ryan called it the other day, a dunkorama. If you're going to create drama, actually create drama. Otherwise, just get out of your own way, set the teams ahead of time and keep it as it is.
Them moving the selection to minutes before the game was so soft. I want these dudes crying, complaining, bitching on Twitter a week leading up to the game. I got picked last. Totally with you on that, Chinmay. Hell yeah,
Yeah,
brother.
imagine if last year we had Kevin Durant, who basically slighted James Harden because the draft happened immediately after the trade deadline. Imagine if that had happened live, 5 minutes before the game. That would have been incredible.
9-time All-Star Russell Westbrook, not an All-Star this year, Gare Bear, but now sticking around LA, going to be a member of the Clippers now. Is this move more meaningful in DFS or Sportsbook? What do you think?
Oh,
that's a great question.
Option C, neither. Look, the dirty secret about the buyout market is that rarely does it have an impact on anything important in the NBA season. There's a reason these guys are being bought out of their contracts. That's kind of just the quick and dirty of it. Westbrook in particular, I just don't get this fit I mean, he's been a net negative for the last couple seasons with the Lakers, particularly on defense, where he's been terrible. And now you put him on a Clippers team where not only is his fit going to be awkward with his lack of shooting, but they have so many guys. They have so many rotation players. This has been the problem with the Clippers all season long, is that we just don't know on any given night what their rotation is. And suddenly, they're already working in trade acquisitions like Eric Gordon and Bones Highland and Mason Plumlee. And now you also just have Russell Westbrook. Like, this really encapsulates what I think has been the Clippers' biggest issue in the Kawhi era, which is just no continuity, no consistency. They just keep throwing weird former All-Stars at the problem. I don't know. Like, you literally just got rid of John Wall and had to buy, like, why get Russell Westbrook? Why is that better? I just don't understand. So I think Russ will be unhappy with his role. I think Clippers fans will be unhappy with what Russ gives them. He probably won't even play that many minutes, if we're being honest.
All right, Chinmay, their championship odds plus 900 before and after, so no movement there. Question for you is, how much of a risk is adding Westbrook at this point?
I disagree a little bit with Gary on the side that this guy is not going to have an impact in terms of DFS. There was a report yesterday that Westbrook is going to have a chance to potentially start for the Clippers. And if that is the case, he is going to play big minutes. Now, whether he'll actually be efficient in that role, probably not. As we saw with the Lakers, he was actually at his best coming off the bench. When he had minimal impact in small bursts, he was actually a solid player. Now, for the Clippers championship odds, really only matters if Kawhi and Paul George are healthy. That is going to determine whether the Clippers make it to the finals or not. Russell Westbrook is not going to change that trajectory for the Clippers. So I think from a DFS standpoint, you can see Russ being a solid filler option on some nights. But in terms of the playoffs and the championship run, it's all Kawhi and Paul George. I don't see Westbrook having an impact on that front.
Okay, let's keep the championship odds punched up here, because as the second half will tip off on Thursday night here, guys, Gare Bear, where can you find value on the board on DraftKings Sportsbook right now? Is there a team that stands out to you?
There's two bets I don't mind here. I think the one I feel strongest about is the Nuggets at plus 750. I think in the aftermath of the Suns trade, they've been a little sort of overshadowed and maybe undervalued. The thing to consider with the Nuggets is in a Western Conference that is very jumbled up right now. Like, it's really hard to figure out where anyone could fall in the first round of the playoff seeding in the Western Conference, except for the Nuggets. It seems like they have the number one seed pretty much locked up. And obviously that's important for any team. It is specifically important for the Nuggets, who have that obvious home court advantage in Denver. They have not only this season the best net rating at home of any team in the NBA. That's something they've consistently had throughout the past 3 seasons. So for them to lock up home court advantage, I think that's a bigger deal than if another team had done that. So I think they're a little undervalued. Another number that I'm intrigued by, although I do think this team probably lacks a body or two to actually win the NBA championship, Cleveland at 30-1 seems odd to me. I just think that, especially with what happened with the Nets, with Kevin Durant leaving, with Kyrie Irving leaving, it created a very simple system in the Eastern Conference. There are 4 really good teams in the East. You could argue that the Bucks and the Celtics are on a tier of their own, but the Cavaliers are going to have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Like, they're going to make the semis. And I think if you can definitively say that, the fact that the next closest Eastern Conference team in that tier, the 76ers, is at 12-1 and they're at 30-1, I don't think there's that much of a difference between the 76ers and the Cavaliers, if I'm being honest.
Okay, Chinmay, talk to me here, dude. You got a team on that board you'd bet right now to win the NBA title.
The big question is who's healthy, right?
Yes.
If Kevin Durant is healthy and is playing well, there's no reason why the Suns at plus 425 can't go all the way. We saw Durant at his peak a few years ago, nearly drag a Nets rotation team with half of James Harden and no Kyrie past the Bucks, who eventually won the NBA championship. Milwaukee at plus 550 is a great bet as well, I think, as long as Giannis is healthy, and Middleton is going to be coming back soon in a full capacity. He was on a minutes limit for a long time. But Milwaukee is on a tear right now. I think, they've won 12 straight. So Milwaukee at its peak is tough to bet against. And then there's a team that won the NBA championship last year that's sitting at plus 1,700. Is Steph Curry going to come back soon? We know what the Warriors can do at home. We know what the Warriors can do in the playoffs as long as Steph, Clay, and Draymond are healthy for the duration of a playoff series. So I think all three of those picks, once we know where guys stand in terms of health, would be tremendous value options just because of the track record that we've seen from some of those superstars.
All right, is there a buyout that happened or one that could happen here, Gare Bear, that could have an impact on teams down the stretch?
No, but let's talk about one anyway.
Go ahead.
John Wall, I think, probably ends up in Phoenix. That's a partnership that I could see making some sense. But again, we're talking about John Wall showing up, playing 12 to 16 minutes a game to spell Chris Paul. And then when Cam Payne comes back, does he even have a role on this team? Probably not. But right now, the Suns do need some guard depth. They've been struggling with injuries to Landry Shamet and Cam Payne all season long. Obviously, they just got rid of Cam Johnson, so even their wing depth is a little shaky right now. I could see Wall ending up in Phoenix, but again, it won't change their championship odds dramatically, which are already pretty high, as we just covered in the last question.
All right, Chimay, one that's been getting a lot of traction here. I mean, we know Kevin Love, Cavs icon. He was out of Cleveland Saturday night, little buyout. By Sunday morning, he was already a member of the Heat. What kind of impact does he make in South Beach?
So Kevin Love has not been playing well this year, and I think he had a string of like 10 to 12 DNP coach decisions leading to this buyout. And I will agree with Garen in the sense that guys really don't want to be bought out. Getting that buyout is not a good thing for these players. You tend to remain that type of player going forward, and it's hard to get that next contract. So I think guys want to avoid that. John Wall has already gotten one, so he's probably not worried about getting another buyout. In terms of Kevin Love, last year he shot about 39% from deep. If he can replicate that performance, if he can get back up to that clip, I think he'll have a positive impact off the bench for the Heat, stretch the floor, provide them with a little bit of three-point shooting, which they did not have last year in the playoffs, and ultimately, did them in a few games. So I think he could have a good impact. He's a nice veteran player, championship experience. They like that in Miami. In terms of his performance, it just hasn't been up there this year. But he does want to play consistent minutes, and it seems like he is motivated to get back out there. So that could be one that has a little more juice than typical buyout candidates. But otherwise, I'd say, yeah, John Wall in Phoenix is probably the best candidate there who will get bought out.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Good stuff. Appreciate the help. We got to take a break. On the other side, we're going to dish out a DFS preview of tonight's 9-game slate around the NHL. Plus, Anna Dua of NHL.com. She was at the Stadium Series this weekend. It looked absolutely insane. Also, where we believe the NHL should take its Stadium Series next. Look at frozen Finley Stadium. Anna Dua of NHL.com tweeting out this pic that looks unbelievable. The atmosphere there. It was the Hurricanes' first Stadium Series appearance. And fans, everyone in that stadium going home happy, unless you were a Capitals fan, because Carolina winning 4-1 over the visiting squad. We have Anna Dua here. We got Paul Bruno of RotoWire as well. Anna, we were just talking in the break. This now sits atop your outdoor hockey game rankings. Why is that?
For me, it does. I mean, Carolina really showed up. It was crazy. The fans were out there tailgating like since the start of the day outside of Carter Finley. The stadium was sold out, almost 60,000 fans. The entire city was just so excited for the game the whole weekend. And it was just so special to see how much this team means, especially coming from a major hockey market in Toronto where I grew up, and then going down to Carolina, seeing a team that's only been there practically my whole life and seeing how much the community cares about them and rallies around them. It was unreal. The NHL did a great job. It was just like 10 out of 10. I wish I could relive that experience again.
Damn, Paul, where would you like to see the next one?
I want to see it in my backyard. I don't know if you guys have given it much coverage, but the Rogers Center is undergoing a major makeover. It's going to give more of a ballpark feel, like a Camden Yards-esque feel. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. And how cool would it be to be the backdrop for a game between the Leafs and Canadiens, or Leafs and Bruins? I'm so stoked for that possibility. Can't wait to see if they do it sometime soon.
Hey, Anna, is there another outdoor location you'd like to see the league take its Stadium Series to?
I know there were like rumors swirling around that they were going to do it in Florida with the Panthers. Like, can you guys imagine that? I love Toronto, and I've gone to some outdoor games in Toronto, and it's great and everything. But when you go to these untraditional hockey markets and you see how they're able to pull this off, it's something really, really special. So if they are able to pull off a Stadium Series game in Florida, that would be nuts.
Yeah, it would be. What about Lambeau Field? I'm kind of shocked there hasn't been one there yet, right? And then you have like the two incredible hockey fan bases of like Chicago and like Minnesota.
Minnesota, right, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Although like people may be a little sick and tired of the Blackhawks in that game. I think they've been in that game like a bajillion times before. Let's fast forward to tonight here, guys. Paul, your Maple Leafs taking on Buffalo. They got newly acquired Ryan O'Reilly playing against one of his old teams. So you looking to your dudes for a center here, or are you going elsewhere?
Well, I'll tell you why O'Reilly is attractive. He's playing second line minutes on a regular shift with Mitch Marner and John Tavares. That's not bad. That'd be a first line for most teams in the league. His price tag only $4,100, and don't forget he also is getting top line power play minutes. So great exposure for him. And if you get a cheap guy like that, you can go big and big game hunting and get a guy like Draisaitl for $7,900. He has a pretty tasty matchup against Philadelphia too. Although the Flyers have been playing a little bit better of late. But you don't see Draisaitl sub 8,000 too much. So that's my pair at center today.
Okay, Anna, what direction you want to go in here at the dot?
I'm keeping the Carolina love going and giving you the deal of all deals. Just very Kotkaniemi's at 3,000 flat right now. And he showed up during that Stadium Series game, had 1 goal, 1 assist in that matchup. He has 7 points in his past 6 games. He's playing on a line with Martin Necas, who's having a crazy year for the Canes. He's just rocking and rolling, and they're switching up their line combos a bit. So Teuvo Teravainen is actually on his other wing. And I like that second line for Carolina right now. If they keep it going, they did great during Stadium Series. They might do great again tonight.
All right, the wings and things department. Who sits atop your rankings right now, Anna?
It's Dawson Mercer of the New Jersey Devils. I've been high on this kid for a long time, and I'm really excited that he's showing up right now. He's at 3,800, so still a great value. 3-game point streak with 5 points, 4 goals, 1 assist in that span. He has 12 shots on goal across his past 2 games, playing on a line with Nico Hischier right now, who has 5 points in his past 2 games. And they have a great matchup tonight against the Montreal Canadiens at home.
All right, Paul, your top DFS winger tonight. Who is it and why?
I'm going to go to the Canes top line to find Andrei Svechnikov. I'm surprised Anna didn't pick him. I think she's got a crush on him for all the comments she's made all season long. But I kind of like him too in this matchup against a depleted St. Louis club. $6,700 the price tag here for a guy who's piling up a lot of assists lately and has 46 points on the season. He's due to score a goal, and I think he's got a good chance to do it tonight. Also like Jesper Bratt against the Canadiens. Second line minutes and power play exposure on the top unit for $6,000 against a poor Montreal club that's hit the skids again. And then how can you overlook what Patrick Kane has done in the last couple of games. 5 goals for him, and he gets a matchup against Vegas, a club that he's rumored to be going to again. Might fuel the fire for him tonight.
Well, Paul, who's a blue liner people should not overlook tonight on this 9-game slate?
I got a pair of guys that are getting power play exposure, and they got pretty good matchups tonight. Mikhail Sergachev against Anaheim, $5,300 the price tag here. He's had a breakout campaign with 38 points in 53 games. Got a chance to pad those stats against the league's worst defensive club this year. And Jared Spurgeon, a guy that I like against the LA Kings. The Kings are no longer that defensively conscious club that we've seen the last couple of seasons. So there's goal opportunities here. I expect a high-scoring tilt, and Spurgeon will be a part of that. Don't forget, he's also a league leader in shot blocking, and that factors into DK scoring. So that's something we shouldn't overlook in this matchup either.
Anna, your defenseman du jour, please.
This is where I'm actually spending up a little bit, and I'm taking Roman Josi. He has 13 points in his past 9 games. He's just top 10 among defensemen in points this season, leads them all in shots on goal, has 226 shots on goal this season, I believe, so far, leading the Predators in both points, assists, power play points, everything across the board, basically. And they're playing the Vancouver Canucks, who are 1-3-0 in their past 4, so.
All right, which team we confident is just going to win tonight? Who's pulling out a dub, Anna?
I think it's got to be the New Jersey Devils right now. They have such a dynamic team. They're playing against Montreal at home. The matchup's in their favor. For me, it's either them or Tampa playing at home against Anaheim as the 2 sure shot winners.
Paul?
Yeah, those are 2 among the lopsided teams in the favorite category. I want to get some money, though, so I'm looking at puck line bets, taking Minnesota over LA. That's a plus 200 there, and Nashville over Vancouver, a plus 150. I'd rather get a big return rather than scraping the bottom with these long shot odds for favorites. There's no money there.
Yeah. And then what's the trade deadline coming up? Is that March 3rd? Is that like a little more than a week away, right?
Yep.
All right, my man. Appreciate
Looking
it.
forward.
Yeah, it should be fun. Paul, thank you. Anna, thank you as well. It's a big day around the NFL as well because teams are allowed to slap that franchise tag on any of their stars. We'll talk about what that means for Lamar Jackson and a few other big names. But first, let's check in with the Gojo boys. They're breaking down what many are considering a head-scratcher of a move. Eric Bieniemy jumping from the Chiefs to the Commanders.
Eric Bieniemy over the weekend was announced as the Washington Commanders' new offensive coordinator. And if that sounds weird, it's because it is. Eric Bieniemy, who has spent years now as the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, has been a part of 2 Super Bowl victories and overall been a part of one of the most successful offenses in the NFL. This kind of lateral move was an understandable head scratcher for a lot of people. And I guess, Brandon, when you hear that, what's the best way to describe this news that Eric Bieniemy is now taking the offensive coordinator job for the Washington Commanders? Because for me, the word is kind of sad. Like, it's so strange that it's come to this, where everything we've heard, as Eric Bieniemy has unfortunately had to be the poster for a conversation about minority hires in the NFL for years now. Like, he's been at the Chiefs for 5 years. And for really the last at least 3 of those years, every offseason we've come up, we've watched the cycle of Eric Bieniemy being interviewed, Eric Bieniemy not being hired despite a bunch of success, more than his comparable peers who have also come up through the recent Andy Reid coaching tree, who, like Eric Bieniemy, what are the things that we always hear thrown against him, right? Has not been a play caller in Kansas City. Neither was Matt Nagy, who went on to become the Chicago Bears head coach, or Doug Peterson, who went on to become the Philadelphia Eagles head coach under Andy Reid. But they still netted those opportunities. And so the frustration that now, Brandon, it seems like Eric Bieniemy looked at the situation in Kansas City and said, well, clearly me just going out here and helping this offense execute. I know he doesn't call plays, but as Andy Reid has pointed out numerous times, as Patrick Mahomes has pointed out numerous times, what Eric Bieniemy does in that building, helping them design these plays, helping coach up the offense overall, helping with the game plans every week, has helped make them one of the best, if not the best offense in the NFL during the last 5 years. The fact that Eric Bieniemy looked at that and had to say, all right, clearly just accomplishing is not good enough, the way that my peers, and even, again, more because of the success they've had while he's been there than my peers in this role in the past who have gotten jobs. I have to now try and go shake it up by going to a place where I will unquestionably be the play caller and will have the title of associate head coach and have all these things that maybe can be the difference for me getting the job that I ultimately want there. It just feels sad.
Yeah, Mike, I don't like it. I think listen, he's got to be, after 2 Super Bowl wins, I feel like he may be in a position where he can call his own shot and decide. Now, obviously, his own shot isn't being a head coach because that opportunity hasn't been available for him. But being able to see where you can possibly grow, you know what I mean? Like, even like, I'll say it this way. I think Ron Rivera is on a very short leash. I think Eric Bieniemy getting a chance to, in his first year, called offensive plays, and then for this new regime, new ownership, this new fresh Washington Commanders franchise, to have someone like him at the helm who has already spent a year in the building, knowing the names, knowing where to get answers from. I think there's a bit of a long game played here, which like kind of makes sense, but it's more like of a player. Like a player does this, like, okay, like where you get drafted helps your career and your growth in the career. Right now, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to take what he's learned and try to apply it in a very, very popular division that does have clear-cut winner. I just don't know, Mike. It doesn't make sense, and I feel bad for him, but I also feel like he has to be in a position where he isn't taking concessions as much as we on the outside are thinking it is. Does that make sense? Like there's something else that we don't know about that makes this make sense for Eric Bieniemy and his family and his growth as a head coach.
The Gojo Show dropping every weekday. Wherever you grab your podcast, grab Mike Golick Jr. and Brandon Newman and allow them inside your ears. Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, the iHeartRadio app. Also, every single Wednesday morning here on The Sweat. But it's Tuesday right now, a big Tuesday around the NFL because teams can start slapperoo, slapping that tag like a sloppy Joe on all of their players. Well, just one player, but you get what I'm trying to say. Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, good morning. Thank you for being here. Upcoming key NFL dates, we got some big ones. Scouting Combine's going to be next after the tag. College Pro Days. Wow, free agency will begin here in 3 weeks. Right now, though, franchise tag Jeff Ulrich. Yes. What's the plan for Lamar Jackson?
What is the plan for Lamar Jackson, man? I mean, this is a situation that could go a lot of different ways. The Ravens obviously can put a franchise tag on him, but there's multiple franchise tags they can put on him. They can put the transition tag or just the pure franchise tag. I think what you're going to see is the non-exclusive franchise tag put on Lamar Jackson. That gives the Ravens obviously like a lower salary that they have to commit to Lamar Jackson next year. It's over $45 million for the exclusive, over just around $32 million for the non-exclusive. The main thing is here, they put the non-exclusive on. You know, Lamar Jackson can go out and negotiate his own contract. Yeah. What have we seen from the Ravens and Lamar Jackson so far? They cannot come to an agreement. Lamar Jackson does not have an agent. He is very set in his ways. This is not going to change. This is not someone out there negotiating for him. Lamar Jackson is negotiating for himself. He cannot get it done with the Ravens. I don't think there's any reason why the Ravens won't just say, here, you want to go out and negotiate with other teams, do it. We'll put the non-exclusive on you. If we want to match it, fine, we will. If not, we'll take the trade. It makes too much sense for the Ravens not to do that at this point. I think you're going to see Jackson potentially negotiating with other teams. And I think the Ravens are going to have a decision to make at some point. Are they going to want to commit to whatever contract Jackson works out, or are they just going to take the 2 first back? So going to be interesting to see. I really think the Ravens will go with the non-exclusive option, but I mean, there's a lot of different things. If they do go with the exclusive, then that probably might even lead to a holdout. So a lot of things going on with Lamar. My personal feeling is I don't think he's a Raven next year.
Yeah, there's 3 quarterbacks who played a whole season under a franchise tag. Last was Dak Prescott. You had Kirk Cousins, I think, 2 years in a row at Washington, 16, 17. I think you got to go back to Drew Brees maybe in 2005. But here's the thing, Pierce. If they slap a non-exclusive tag on him. They'll get 2 first-round picks if they decide not to match an offer from another team, but Jackson's worth more than 2 first-round picks, is he not?
Is he? If you asked me that question in 2020 or 2019, well, we wouldn't even have this conversation. During those 2 seasons, you just want to lock him up long term. But you look at what he's done in the last 2 years, 2021, 2022, his value has dropped. And so I'm right there with Jeff. This is a great move by the Ravens. I don't think Jackson's playing his cards right. Obviously, he's not going to get a long-term relationship with them. The relationship has become acrimonious. It's starting to sour. I think his performance on the field is a guy that may not be necessarily committed. We can go to his Twitter account and see some of the more egregious things that happened. It wasn't a really good season for him in a lot of ways. And, you can say he doesn't have a lot of support around him. Didn't have any receivers. The line hasn't been great. His running backs haven't been healthy. But, okay, well, you're supposed to be the superstar quarterback. And, yes, he was great in 2019, and he was amazing in 2020 when he was surrounded by a ton of talent. You minimize that talent, you take it away, and he's been just okay. I mean, he's really good, but I don't know if you want to lock him up long term. And if you can get multiple trade picks out of him, I think I would take that right now, absolutely. I think the Ravens are playing it well, and the guy that doesn't have an agent probably not making the right moves.
Yeah, Ravens 45-16 with Jackson as a starter, 8-18 without him. They average 28 points per game, and Jackson starts 20 without him. I think they need this guy on the roster in 2023, but I like Jeff's hot take. He's not going to be a Raven. That's cool. Giants have decisions to make here too, dudes.
Yeah.
Jeff Ulrich, are they going to tag Saquon Barkley, or are they going to tag Daniel Jones?
I mean, it's kind of like, pick which bad decision do you want to make here for the Giants. They're in a tough spot, admittedly. You cannot give Daniel Jones $200 million. It's going to cripple the franchise going forward. What did we see from the Giants last year? They didn't have a complete enough team. They didn't have enough on defense. They didn't have the wide receivers. Now you're going to give Daniel Jones $200 million and then try and build a team with what's left. That's not going to work. At the same time, they have to have someone at quarterback. They don't have a high enough draft pick to get one of the top 4. So my opinion, what they should do, they need to maybe just franchise Barkley for a year or just trade him. And I think that they should explore doing something similar with Daniel Jones. I don't think they should be extending either of these guys, to be honest. Barkley looks like he's lost a little bit of pop. He had coming off a high usage. The honest scenario for Barkley is that he regresses next year. Running backs who take a million carries one season, they typically get injured or regress the next year. It's a great time to cut ties with Saquon Barkley. It's also a great time to just franchise tag Daniel Jones and just try and drag this out for one more year so that you can invest in the quarterback in the draft or another trade or something. You don't want to commit $200 million to Daniel Jones right now. He's a good quarterback. You're going to cripple your franchise, unfortunately, if you give him that kind of like Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins money. So no, the honest answer here is don't commit to any of these guys. Franchise tag one of them and look to try and replace them in the draft.
But Barkley's coming off a career high in rushing yards, a Pro Bowl season, and that was behind an offensive line that was not great, Jeff. So, Pierce, my question for you is, which is the best one-year solution, tagging Saquon or tagging Jones?
It's going to be to tag Jones, and it's just kind of basic market behavior in the NFL. Running backs are replaceable. I understand that Barkley is one of the best in the league and did a lot last season, but that's another reason why you kind of need to let him go, is because he did a lot, and running backs wear out pretty quickly. And I know Jones is not really a guy. Look, if you can work out a long-term deal with Jones that makes sense, then that would be great. Probably not going to happen. You're probably going to have to use the franchise tag on him. And in his defense, and they've already invested. You can't let him walk either, right? They invested a first-round pick in the guy, and you want to give him a fair shake. He's been through multiple offensive coordinators, head coaches. He's never been surrounded by talent. We talked about the offensive line not being good for Barkley. Well, it's also not good for Daniel Jones either. Have you seen his receiving core over the last few seasons? His offensive coordinators have been awful. We really only got a little bit of Brian Dable last year, and it looks like Jones can possibly be a future star in this league. And I think you just got to ask yourself, 10 years from now, is there any way, shape, or form that Barkley's even in the league, let alone an elite player? Whereas you look at Daniel Jones and you say 10 years from now, he could still be a star quarterback. So I think you definitely want to invest and not cut ties with the quarterback. And we know how hard it is to find starting quarterbacks in this league. So it's going to have to be Jones.
All right, well, we heard coming into this segment, the Gojo guys talking about Eric Bieniemy making his way from the Chiefs as an offensive coordinator to an offensive coordinator there with the Commanders. Best coaching move this offseason, Pierce. Who is it?
I'll give you three. None of them are really head coaching jobs.
Okay.
They're all coordinators, but they're big coordinators. Vic Fangio used to be a head coach, used to be, the defensive guru genius of the league. He's got a coaching tree. He's going to go to Miami. His defense relies a lot on athletic, strong defensive backs, and Miami has those. So we could see Miami really come into its own if they can boost that defense up and play consistently. Bill O'Brien in New England, it's nothing flashy, it's nothing sexy, but again, it's the Patriots. But the big takeaway here is Matt Patricia will not be calling plays, so that's a boost. And then the other one is Nathaniel Hackett for the Jets, offensive coordinator, maybe a little too rush heavy, but the Jets do have plenty of good running backs. And the big storyline here is he's the former Green Bay offensive coordinator. Maybe that's going to lead to ties of Aaron Rodgers coming in. So I think those are the three coaches that you want to keep your eyes on.
All right, Jeff, the NFL coaching carousel, biggest winner this offseason. Which team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep this really simple and just stick with head coach. Pierce made some really good, insights there on the coordinators, but this is not rocket science. It's Sean Payton. It really is. Sean Payton went 152-89 in New Orleans for over basically 16 seasons. His teams never won fewer than 7 games in a season while he's with the Saints. His offense is ranked top 10 in yardage differential in 15 of those 18 seasons. This is a guy who turned Jimmy Graham into an absolute monster, who coached Drew Brees well late into his career when he was regressing and still put up winning seasons. Did he have a little bit of bad luck in the playoffs? Should he maybe have won one more Super Bowl? Yes. But, you look at all the hot coaches, and look, DeMeco Ryans, Shane Steichen, these guys were great coordinators. Great coordinators do not always make great head coaches. The one head coach who was hired, who we know is already a great head coach, was Sean Payton, much like Doug Peterson with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year.
Yeah, brother.
This is a no-brainer. This is a good move by the Denver Broncos. Did it cost them something? Did they already go in on Russell Wilson too early? Yes. Are they trying to do the right thing here by getting the experienced head coach? Yes. Sean Payton's record is going under the radar here. Everyone trying to say, oh, it's DeMeco Ryans, it's Steichen. Maybe those guys do work out, but man, it is a tough transition from coordinator to head coach, especially with no head coaching experience. The best hire was Sean Payton. I absolutely think that.
Maybe the best hire, but also likely has the toughest job ahead of him, right? Got to save the spiraling career of Russell Wilson.
It's a tough division, too. He's in a tough division.
Yep. The defending Super Bowl champions are in that division. I can't
Got to deal with
confirm.
those Subway commercials.
You two are XFL experts. They just had the opening. I use expert loosely. Just had opening weekend around the league here, dudes. What was your biggest takeaway, Jeff Ulrich?
Biggest takeaway is just, it went how we want. I mean, there's a lot of sloppy play, a lot of crazy stuff going on. But the one thing is the rule changes that have been made. I mean, they're legit. Like, we saw a team score 15 points in under 2 minutes. We saw some teams come back from big deficits. We saw some defenses really get after it as well. I think that you're kind of seeing some teams already sort of show their hand, like the Arlington Renegades under Bob Stoops, the guy who just has a lot of wins. I think it's interesting that Seattle was really airing it out, with probably the top receiving core. It didn't really work out for them, but that's something to take note of for DFS. And then to me, the team you really want to fade here going to be the Orlando Guardians. A head coach with not much experience and just not really a great roster. So lots of things to take note of. But the sloppy play overall, kind of expected. It's going to be a fun league. I really like what I saw at AJ McCarron and Ricky Prohl too. I mean, I feel like McCarron, Prohl maybe has a chance to be like the Stafford Cup of that league this year. We'll see how the Brahmas. I don't know how St. Louis does the rest of the season.
Yo, Pierce Dietrich, I love the three-point conversion. The XFL's three-point conversion. It totally changes up a team's strategy towards the end of the game. You could be down 18 freaking points and still have an opportunity to tie it up. 2 scores.
Yeah, USFL had that as well. And You've got they have an onside kick thing where you can go for it on like a 4th and 15, and the kickoff rules are kind of interesting that open the kicking game back up. That's all fun and exciting, but what I really appreciated, or at least I found encouraging from week one, is it was relatively predictable. One of the problems with the USFL last season is we never knew who was going to play and what they were going to do. Some guys just absolutely wouldn't show up. But in week one, the guys that were kind of highlighted pretty much, lived up to it. Luis Perez was terrible in his first XFL stint and was pretty rough in the USFL, but kind of came along towards the end of the season. Well, this year, Perez looked pretty good, 34 pass attempts, 249 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ben DiNucci, the former Dallas QB, he was talked up a lot last week. He passed the ball 54 times. That is something that is very encouraging, very exciting, almost threw for 300 yards. And then there were other big familiar faces like Josh Gordon had a good game. Kalen Ballage, guys that we're familiar with, who we thought, well, maybe they were in the NFL, they can play well. They did play well. The former Pittsburgh wide receivers, Martavis Bryant, Eli Rogers, had solid games. Even some minor league favorites like Sal Cannella and Max Borgi, who were projected to have good games, they all did. So if we can predict and project with this league, I think it's going to be fun to watch, as long as it's just not complete randos from week to week. But week one, very encouraging. I'm excited about week two.
Yeah. Speaking of fun to watch, John Rahm, Jeff Ulrich, how nasty was that? How nasty was his performance? Again, he's won 3 times in 2023. It's freaking February 21st, dude.
It's pretty impressive, man. Pretty impressive. John Rahm, yeah. I mean, look, dominant performance, obviously, by him over the weekend. It's interesting, though, because, I mean, we're still a month and a half away from the Masters. So I think the big thing with John Rahm is, can he keep the momentum going through Florida and into the Masters? That's going to be something to keep an eye on. Right now, what we're seeing with the odds with John Rahm, I mean, obviously going to be just kind of bet down to really low odds, but could open up opportunities to get in on other players as well. So still a month and a half to go to the Masters. That's the big one, obviously, that everyone's going to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, man. Honda Classic will tee off on Thursday. We're going to give you, Jeff, the next segment off. We're going to bring on Jason Sobel because, most of the tour is taking this week off, too, before a couple more elevated events. But, yeah, we're going to dive into John Rahm's dominance, what Jason Sobel took away from Tiger's performance, and some best bets to make ahead of Honda on Thursday. Third win of 2023 for John Rahm at the Genesis Invitational, taking over the top spot in the world golf rankings as well. This will now mark his 44th week as world number one during his career, the 4th most among active golfers behind only Tiger, Rory, Jason Day, Jason Sobel of the Action Network, kind enough to join us now. How the hell is this dude able to be so freaking dominant right now? What do you think's working for him, Jay?
Yeah, so Emerson, good morning. And I've been doing this for a long time. I can tell you in my expert opinion, John Rahm, he's really good at the golf. That's how he's been able to do it. I don't look, I heard this years ago. Ian Poulter told me this when Rory McIlroy was about 19 years old and just breaking onto the scene. And I've always thought this when it comes to the game's best players, which you boil it down. There's so much that goes into the game and so many nuances and so many little things you have to do well. Ian Poulter said of Rory back then, well, he drives it long and he drives it pretty straight. His iron play is terrific. When he misses the greens, he chips very well and he makes a whole lot of putts. He's got the right mentality to be great and be dominant in the game. That's it. That's sort of golf. That's the whole thing. And John Rahm has that entire package and it's firing on all cylinders right now. He is a joy to watch. He's not only won 3 times this year, he's won as the pre-tournament favorite 3 times. And Emerson, I'm not sure I can envision a tournament coming up anytime in the near future where John Rahm is not the favorite going into it.
And Jay, not since Tiger Woods, I think it was 2006, as a man won a total of 8 times in a season on the PGA Tour, 2 of which that season were major championships. How big of a threat is Rahm to that number?
I'd still say we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Really? Dude, 3 wins.
Recency bias. I know, I get it. It's a recency bias. We've known this for years in golf. On Monday morning, the one thing we all say is, boy, if he plays like that every week, except they don't all play like that every week. I do give Rahm a little more credit for he's more of a West Coast type player than East Coast. He hasn't yet won in Florida. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks when he comes to the Arnold Palmer Invitational and the Players Championship. Not to say he can't do it, but I'm still taking the under on 8 wins this year.
Okay, I'd probably do the same for Tiger Woods as well, considering he probably won't even play 8 tournaments this year. What'd you like about Tiger this past weekend? I thought just making it to the weekend and playing all 4 rounds, I thought that was a big enough win for him. But what'd you take away?
Yeah, I thought that was great. Look, he exceeded my expectations, and I said here on the show last week we should never doubt Tiger Woods, and anyone who was betting him to miss the cut, which was a number that was getting shorter and shorter as the week progressed, you found out why we should never doubt him, because he did indeed make the cut. I don't like to put success or failure based on, well, he shot a certain number for 2 days and either made it or missed it based on what all the other players did, but it's a nice barometer of where his game is. He got 2 more competitive rounds. I think it's all systems go moving forward. I would expect him. In fact, I'd be more surprised, Emerson, if he doesn't play the Players Championship in a few weeks than if he does, because I think he's going to be there. I don't see any reason why not, throw in the fact that, look, he seems healthy. He seems like the swing is there. I don't know how his body reacted come Monday morning when he had to wake up after 4 rounds of competitive golf for the first time in close to a year. But I do think that the leadership, being a vocal leader of the PGA Tour over the past year, that would certainly play a role in Tiger's decision-making process of whether or not to go to TPC Sawgrass in a few weeks. And if he does that, I would assume we'd see him at all the major championships again, getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, like I said, looks really good for Tiger, and it's only going to get better from here.
And so 2 elevated events the past 2 weeks, nothing this week at the Honda, 2 elevated events the next 2 weeks. So, like, this is 100% a week where you can look at this field, Jay, weaker field. But from a betting perspective at the Honda Classic, it's like you don't have to worry, right, about beating those top dogs in the world, the John Rahms of the world here. And maybe we can find some long shot opportunities on the DraftKings Sportsbook, which you have Sungjae Im at the top of the board, favorite for outright, plus 1,000. Shane Lowry's plus 1,600 there. Billy Horschel plus 2,500. I bring up those dudes because they're the 3 highest ranked golfers in this field. Who would you rather have at their number?
That's a good question, Emerson. You ask good questions around here.
Thanks. I get a lot of help from our producers who are much smarter than me.
I know you do. I know it wasn't you. First of all, this is why we bet on golf. 10 years ago, when there was no real legalized gambling, sports gaming here in America, a lot of people were just looking at tournaments based on the field and saying, well, we had all the best players last week. We'll have them all again next week and the week after that. I'm not watching this week. This is why golf betting is getting bigger and bigger, because you have a tournament that's got 3 of the top 20, 8 of the top 50. It's not a great field this week, and yet we can still put our money, we can still have investments and have a personal engagement into what's going on at the Honda Classic this week. So that's all a filibuster into getting into which of those 3 top 20 players do I like the most this week. I like Sanjay. I hate the number. I do think he's got a better chance of showing up than the other guys. Shane Lowry told me a few weeks ago that, quite frankly, he's really only playing because he lives 5 minutes away and he was going to practice this week anyway, so he might as well go out and play. That's not a rigging endorsement. At those numbers, give me Billy Horschel. I just think he's less than 5 times or more than 5 times capable of winning than Sanjay Im, considering Im's at plus 800, Horschel at what, plus 3,000?
Yeah.
Just based on the numbers. But if it was a pick 'em, I'm going Sanjay.
All right, we got Sepp Straka sitting there at plus 5,500. Guy came back from what, 5 strokes down in the final round last year to win the Honda. What bets, if any, would you place on the defending champ here? This is a tough-ass golf course, Jay.
Really tough golf course, and he is not playing his best golf. He's been losing strokes in nearly every major category over his last 3 or 4 starts. And Straka is, as we've seen over the last couple of years, a momentum type of player. When it's going really well, it's going really well. When it's not, it's not. And it's certainly not going well for him. For me this week, Straka is a big fade. If you can find some matchups, look at some of those guys on the board right there. Byung-Yun Ahn, who's played well here in the past. Joseph Bramlett's playing well right now. Anyone you can find at around that number and find a matchup against Sepp Straka, I would probably take the other side of it.
Okay, so when we talk long shots, I mean, how far down do you really want to go on the board here? How weird are you going to get?
It's not going to get that weird.
Yeah.
I get it. 5 of the last 10 winners of the Honda Classic have had triple-digit odds coming into the week, so I know it's a possibility, but boy, your traders made these such short odds. Last week, I told you here on the show, I like Thomas Dietrich at 180 to 1. Okay, he played well, made the cut, wasn't great, wasn't like in it on the leaderboard at the end, but he's 30 to 1 this week. That's how much shorter the odds are this week compared to last week. If you're trying to get a guy at triple digits, I don't have anyone great. Tyler Duncan plays okay in the wind. Eric Barnes is on my list.
Yeah.
Eric Cole, I don't expect any of them to win. They're more top 20, top 30 type plays. Grayson Sigg, I think, is sitting at 90 to 1. But boy, I can't find myself anyone that I like that much to go too deep here.
Yeah, I mean, Dietrich makes cuts, right? I mean, kind of hangs around 30th place here, I think, in his last handful of starts. So could actually make sense for a DFS play there. Who was your pick? Who's your pick right now? Pressure's on to win the Honda Classic. Last year, Honda's going to be the title sponsor of this event, man. They've been hanging out for 42 years.
Yeah, this one might be gone after this week.
Yeah.
If certainly it won't be the Honda Classic anymore. So I think it's a great week to sprinkle a few throughout. My favorite outright play this week is Taylor Pendrith, the big old Canadian who drives the ball really well. He looked great last year after coming back. Missed 4 months due to a rib injury, came back and finished top 15, I think, in 5 of his last 6 starts, made the President's Cup team. He is a guy who's ready to win. I look at this week as sort of a week where if you like a guy long-term, you're bullish on a player over the course of the year, and he's playing this week, this is a good week to just throw a little money on him and see if you can have a little confidence in your own picks in a guy that can show up this week. I'll throw Adam Svensson and Robbie Shelton on that list as well, guys who are 35 to 1, 45 to 1 each of them. So again, it's a little sprinkler. It's less of a here's a guy that I love, he's my guy, I'm taking him, and more of a little here, a little there, a little there.
Okay. Have you been able to watch Full Swing, the Netflix documentary yet? I mean, it's all like all my golf buddies are talking about. I have yet to get into it. It's on the game plan for this week.
Watch the whole thing.
Okay.
You should watch it. It's good. I don't know that it's going to do for golf what the Drive to Survive documentary on Netflix did for F1. It's good. I liked it.
Okay.
Joel Damon episode. It's number 1. It's the best one out there.
All right. I was going to say, if you could give us a tease, maybe like your favorite part so far.
Episode 4. The whole Joel Damon episode is great. It's the best one.
All right. I'll take your word for it. Should I start on episode 4?
Yeah, you might want to.
Okay. Thanks, Dad. We'll see you later. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hopefully, Jesse's back tomorrow morning. You got the Slate tonight at 5 o'clock. So if you don't watch that, we'll see you at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Wednesday morning, hump day edition of The Sweat. The Gojo Gang will be here. Keep it up there, Billy. Keep it up there.
That's a very good shot. The first 2 days. Par yesterday. Just under 30 feet. Whoa, maybe we should call him Sunday M. He's just played that hole 3 under for the week.
Just hits it so doggone straight. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like machine-like.
The green. We saw Jason Days fly all the way up there.